Hi everybody, Kirkus here. Happy Friday. Welcome to the Doghouse. This is our 20th show, believe it or not, since our first one went out early during the lockdown earlier in the year. Absolutely amazing. I've had a brilliant time thus far. This week we want to do something a little bit special. Not so much music, but we have lined up for you an amazing interview with a fantastic artist, East Midlands based Richard Shaw. If you don't know Richard, he plays guitar in the anthemic, dark, amazing metal band called Cradle of Filth. They actually appeared at Download a couple of years ago on the main stage. They toured all over the world. We had a fantastic chat about all sorts of things: his musical upbringing, his family and friends, how life on the road really, about their riders. And that was quite an interesting one, and about what he does when he's not on the road as well. So check the interview out. I'll see you next week. Thanks to Microbrew Radio and Paul Caseman's live at 5. Topical radio show. And yeah, see you next week. Take care. Bye. Earlier this week, I caught up with a bit of a rock and roll legend. In my lifetime. He's younger than me, but he's still a legend. He's the guitar player in the sort of dark, gothic metal band Cradle of Filth. Absolutely fantastic extravaganza of shows those guys put on all over the world. We talk about that. But he has a lot of roots closer to home as well. We discussed that in the video. I think we'll go straight into it, Elliot. So this is Richard Shaw of NG26 and Cradle of Filth talking to me earlier this week. Take it away.
Off we go.
Welcome to the Doghouse. In the Doghouse with me today, we've got Mr. Richard Shaw. How you doing, Richard?
Not so bad. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right, thank you. It's good to see you.
And good to see you too.
If you don't know Richard, I know a lot of musicians around the area do. Richard plays guitar in a gothic symphonic metal band called Cradle of Filth. How are you finding lockdown?
Interesting. It took me a while to get used to a new way of life, but I think I'm getting there with it. I'm getting my head around it. So it will feel weird when we're finally unleashed upon the world. But it could be a lot worse. The way I see it is it could be a lot worse. There are times where I'm like, I just wish I could just nip here, just nip there. But I always remind myself it could be a lot worse. We could be kept indoors without YouTube and Netflix and all manner of distractions. And so if we're going to stay indoors, there are worse times in the history of the world to be stuck indoors, really.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Cradle of Filth, they've been going, I think, 29 years.
Something like that. Yeah,
something like that. But for yourself, is it about 6?
It's about 6, yeah. February 2014, was my first show, so 6 years.
Can you remember where that first show was?
It was at a place called Backstage, which is in Munich, Germany.
Wow.
And I've played it 2 more times since then, and it's always weird going back because it's always brings back memories of the first show where I was incredibly nervous, putting on the costume and the makeup for the very first time.
Yeah.
Still trying to remember if I knew how to play the songs because I'm about to play them in front of 2,500 people. Things like that. A lot of things running through my mind when I first joined, and so it's always weird when I get to go back to Munich because it just reminds me of that very first scary but very exciting time in my life.
That you have a great stage show visually. Just before you get to the music, the sets, the props, absolutely incredible to watch.
Oh no, yeah, we're very very lucky that we can. We're kind of afforded the opportunity to be able to put on a show because it's, as I'm sure you can appreciate, it can be expensive to tour and to take this stuff on tour. We're very, very lucky. We are one of those bands who can bring back theatricality, and it's
very theatrical.
We're allowed to express it.
Yeah, you mentioned makeup there, so we've already put some promo out for the show and the interview today. and makeup and how you dress, but how long does it take to prepare? Some of the detail of the makeup of the.
When I first joined the band, Lindsay, our keyboard player, had to basically put the makeup on for me because I'd never done it before, and it took like maybe half an hour or so. And then when I first tried it, it took quite a long time, maybe about 45 minutes. And now I literally, from being as I am now to being stage ready, literally takes about 10 minutes.
When I first saw you way back, I think anyway, 14 years ago, performing in I believe your first band, NG26. So even then, technically, as a guitar player, it's like wow. When did you learn, and who did you self-taught lessons?
I was 11, nearly 12 when I picked up a guitar. Started having lessons.
Yep.
Every Saturday morning at South East Derbyshire College, and then which I'm literally live around the corner from it now, which is still weird in itself. Just I had lessons for a while, and I just really enjoyed it. Even I think I was very, very lucky to have a teacher that kind of understood what I wanted to do, but also was like, well, if you want to be good on the guitar, you need to do this as well. And so it'd make me do things I didn't necessarily want to do, like certain chords and certain scales and things like that. I'm like, well, when am I ever going to need this? And then I realised I've needed it every single day ever since as a musician. Yeah. But it also like showed me some of my favourite songs. And this, like I couldn't play a song start to finish to save my life, obviously when I first started. But it showed me like little snippets of riffs by my favourite bands, and oh my God, and I just, even if it's just 4 notes, I'll be like, oh my God, that's amazing. Like, and it just spurred on the love of music and love of guitar, and I've played every day ever since, really. And that's where the being like you always like being good on the instrument came from, was out of it, half the passion for it and wanting to pick it up.
Yep.
And everything I knew, it like opened a door to something else, and it was like a never-ending thing. It's still the same way now, but also I think it was just out of sheer boredom as well. There's no Wi-Fi. I was still learning in a time when even dial-up internet was only just starting to come into our house. So I think there are a lot fewer distractions back then as well.
Just flipping back to Cradle. So since you've been in the band, they've released 2 albums.
Yes.
Very successful albums as well. That's took you,
you did well.
Yeah, all around the world. So the 2017 Critonia, The Seductiveness of Decay, was the album, and the tour. How long did that go on for? It seemed to go forever.
It ended up being about 2 years, like a 2-year-long world tour. But it's weird because we were only meant to be on tour for 1 year, not even 1 year. We started in like October 2017, and we pretty much finished in like the August of 2018, and got to go all over the world pretty much once and play some incredible festivals and some incredible venues. And then it was the plan to go into the studio to start doing the next album that we're just in the middle of recording now. And what happened, we actually changed managers halfway through that. Once we'd finished the tour cycle, we just all decided we can't stick with the same management.
Yep.
We found new management, and new management automatically went, well, we've been talking to all the promoters around the world. They basically want you to do it again because it was successful. They'll go out on tour and go out for another year and basically do it all over again, which I'm not going to complain because, 1, I love it, and 2, a lot of people don't realise this, but that's pretty much where bands make their money now.
Yes.
So as soon as you're on tour, it's like, we don't have to worry about money for a little bit.
Yeah.
The money's coming in. That's good. I don't have to worry when I'm next going to be able to pay a certain bill or something. You're like, oh, I've got some work lined up for a year or whatever. So that was the plan, really. And that's been the way ever since. Our management is just a big believer in just, if there's demand for you to go on tour, you go on tour.
So if you got, when you have back-to-back shows, you might do, 4 shows in a week or 5 shows in a week sometimes if you can commute. What's the typical day in the life of yourself in the band?
Yeah, Well, my first thought was it just depends on what kind of tour it is, because that does make a big difference. Like if we're very, very lucky to have a tour bus tour,
Yep.
like for instance when you do UK and Europe and North America, you usually get a tour bus.
Yep.
So in which case we drive through the night. So luckily we've all got bunks on the bus, and you sleep during the night and you wake up, you're in a different city or even sometimes in a different country. If it's Europe, you just wake up whenever you wake up, really.
Yeah.
I usually wake up about 10 o'clock or so, because usually, obviously, you can understand it gets into later nights on tour. So I'll wake up about 10, maybe 11. Get up, and usually you walk into the venue and there's breakfast at the venue all set up, ready to go. So just grab some breakfast, get the Wi-Fi code so I can check emails and stay in touch with family and stuff like that. And then usually I'll go out for a wander, see what's around. Sometimes we're very, very lucky, like you get to see some cities and some countries that there's a lot to see and a lot to do. So you try and pack it in the day.
Go see the
and then usually around 4 o'clock, 3 or 4 o'clock, we'll have sound check for about half an hour.
Yep.
Obviously the support bands will then sound check after us. But then in some countries we'll do meet and greets. So that will take another hour or so, hour and a half, where you're meeting the fans. And then get dinner, chill out for a little bit, maybe warm up on the guitar, and then go out and do the show. And then after the show, it's pretty much just chill out for a little bit and go back on the bus and then repeat. But there are some tours where you don't have a tour bus and you're flying every day. That's the killer, where people go, it's not as glamorous as it sounds.
Right.
It's like when you're doing like Australia, South America, Russia, places like that, where it's like a tour bus, you just wouldn't get to the next venue in time. No. You just wouldn't do it. It's just too big. So what you'll usually do is you'll finish the show about maybe say 11 o'clock at night, get back to the hotel maybe 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and then usually about 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, you've got to get up to get to the airport to play a show the next day. So on those things, it's like, yeah, this is amazing. It's glamorous. And it is brilliant. But unless you've got a day off in that country, you don't really get to see anything other than the hotel, the airport, the plane, and then the venue. That's literally all you see. So it just depends where we are. But either way, it's exciting, it's fun, but it can be tiring.
As regards Bandrider, so I've heard that you've used a few little tricks in the past to establish how good a rider is.
Yeah.
Do you want to share that with me and tell the viewers?
The way we used to do it, I don't think we do it anymore, because our rider's actually gotten a little bit smaller, because we realised there was a lot of stuff we just weren't using. Yeah. And a lot of people don't realise this, but on a rider, I think everyone assumes like it's paid for you. It's not. It comes out of the band's budget. So you get a fee for doing the show, but you can order as much as you want, but it comes out of your fee. They use your fee to buy it. So you basically get only what you need, really. So we've trimmed back a little bit. But the one thing we used to do that was always really funny, it's like the Van Halen kind of M&Ms in a brandy glass thing, where a lot of people think they just did it because it was like just because you could. Yep. And it wasn't really. When you really know the real reason for it, it makes a lot of sense. So what we used to do is something similar. We used to have one Kinder Egg, just for one. And if you could see the one Kinder Egg, like on the table, surrounded by all the other stuff, you know you've got everything else, because we used to put the Kinder Egg right at the bottom of the rider. And that means, right, they have read the rider. They've not just gone and got whatever they think you're going to need, and then that's it. Literally, instead of us crossing off, they've got the bread, they've got the fruit, they've got this, just find the Kinder Egg and you're like, cool, we've got everything. If there is no Kinder Egg, then you start going, right, okay, we've got to really check through this and make sure we've got everything we need. Because it's not just for band, it's for crew as well. And
yes, that's right.
9 times out of 10, it's the only thing you're going to eat all day. Yeah. So you want to make sure you've got everything that you've asked for.
Great band, Cradle of Filth. If I was going to ask you at the end, but I'll ask you now. If you could, one of the best gigs, you might be able to pinpoint like the best gigs for different reasons. But if you had to perform one again, where would you go? What would it be?
That's a very tough question, because we've been very, very lucky to play some amazing places. Like some of the ones that pop out at me are some places like in Russia, like Moscow is always incredible to play, because that's just crazy. Yeah. South America is also crazy. You can play anywhere in South America, and they're just so passionate. So we could play even if we play to like 200 people, it's like it can be sometimes better shows than playing to 100,000 people because they're that passionate.
Yeah.
But don't get me wrong, the big gigs are really, really fun as well. But just for being a local lad and having been to pretty much every Download, we got to play the main stage in Download 2018, and that usually I don't get nervous. That show I was nervous. Fantastic. And it's not. It was always the dream. Ever since I picked up the guitar, it was like, one day I'm going to play like main stage Donington. And you kind of say that to yourself, thinking it's not really going to happen. But it's a good thing to kind of think about and go, wouldn't it be good if I can pretend I'm like AC/DC live in like Monster Rock, like Iron Maiden, all this kind of stuff. Yeah, and then it actually happened. And that was just a very weird feeling because at the same time, it was nothing like how I expected it to be. But at the same time, it was everything I wanted it to be at the same time.
Great answer.
The little details you don't think of. So Download 2018 for me just was a very emotional day. It was brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
When I first discovered Richard Shaw, NG26, so Hena based, Derbyshire based, from the same town that I came from, Hena. I saw you in the Jolly Colliers. That was before that your first album came out. There were great gigs straight away. When I saw you guys, I knew there was something there. All of you, you're all fantastic musicians. You gelled really well together. Two sets of brothers.
Yeah.
Did you school together?
We did. Went to school together. So me and Chris Topley, the singer, we were in the same year at school. His brother John and my brother Rob, they were 2 years above us in the same year at school. So it's kind of weird, and even from if I remember correctly, Rob and John were even in the same ward because they were born only a few days apart. So we're literally lifelong friends. It's crazy, and like I say, we kind of started playing our instruments around the same time. So even like turning each other on to certain bands, or like Chris was playing guitar as well. I was like, oh, check this out. And he would like say, oh, I've learned this. And we'd show each other stuff that we'd learned in our lessons. Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of that chemistry came from, is it just naturally was there. One, from being brothers. Yeah. And then two, just because we were on the same kind of musical paths.
Yeah.
The same kind
did you, you said Chris played guitar.
He did it, originally, yeah.
Did you all, were you a band of 4 guitar players? How did we go? Drums, bass, guitar? With John and Rob and me, it was always weird because that's just what we started playing. Me and my brother actually had the same guitar teacher from day one. So he was learning to play bass and I was learning to play guitar in the same lesson. So like he'd show me like the chords to a certain song and he'd like, right, while you're practicing that, I'll show your brother how to play the bass line for it. Yeah. And right, now my brother's going to practice the bass line. How are you getting on with those chords? Yeah. So even from the very first guitar lesson, me and my brother were technically playing together. John always wanted to play drums. Chris was playing guitar. So Chris was actually the lead guitar player in NG26 when we were called Eclipse way back in the day, and we had a different singer and all this kind of stuff. And then Chris just, because he was the lead guitarist, so I was always jealous of Chris in a weird way, because I was like, oh, he gets to do all these solos. I wish I could solo. I don't know how. He's really good at them. And it was always one of those things. I was going to be rhythm guitar. He was going to be lead guitar. Then the singer left, and Chris was just expressed more of an interest in singing, and slowly just started putting the guitar down more and more to the point where I just became the guitar player. And then we just kind of morphed into, over a period of years, what NG26 ended up becoming, really. Yeah. Well, they're a fantastic band. Breakaway. A friend gave me the CD back then. He said, "Listen to this," and it was incredible. It's still a great album, really well produced.
Yeah, we're really, really proud of that, because when we look back at it, I mean, Chris and I were 21, not long-term 21 when that album came out, and Rob and John were 23, and you just look at it as like a snapshot in time of what I was as a 20, because we were writing it when I was like 20. Yep. And then we recorded it when we were like 21. So it's like that snapshot in time of me just like coming to the end of my teenage years and all this kind of stuff. And that's the ability we were, and the songwriters we were. And then with every album ever since, it is, and that's why I love albums. It is like a snapshot of who
Yeah.
you are as a person and a player at that moment in time. So
We,
we're really, really proud of it.
yeah, it's a great album, and the follow albums open your mind. Again, you see that step. So
Yeah.
playing more technical, still really tight, precise. Great songs as well on that.
Yeah, I was just going to say that was always the goal, is to not only become better on our instruments, as much as I really love practicing and trying to get better, but trying to get better was more because, well, if I've got an idea in my head, I want to be able to technically play it in order to make the songs better. So we were developing our craft as songwriters, as performers, and it was just a very organic thing. There was nothing preconceived or contrived about it. It was just like, well, this is what excites us right now at this point in our lives. Let's just run with it and see what happens. So very, very kind of almost carefree attitude to making music.
Probably around sort of the final NG26. Well, hopefully there'll be something else coming at some point, maybe.
Crossed, yeah, all being well.
But anyway, Until My Heart Stops came out in 2015, I think, and then
Yes, yeah, 2015.
And then you kind of you got the opportunity to play with Cradle and go off on a world tour. So it kind of probably I'd like to see it as a hiatus because around that time.
Yeah, it was a funny thing because obviously I joined Cradle in 2014. And basically, when I came back from my first tour with Cradle, we started writing what would be Until Your Heart Stops. So I was writing Until Your Heart Stops with NG26, but I also ended up writing Hammer of the Witches, my first album with Cradle. So there was 2 albums basically happening at the same time, 2 very different bands. And I was almost taking the experience I had from being in Cradle into NG26.
Yep.
But without the experience of being in NG26, I wouldn't have had the skills and the know-how to be in a band like Cradle of Filth, and get used to the touring life and all that, because I've been doing it with NG26. So it's a weird one. So the hiatus is going to happen. I think a lot of people think it's because of Cradle of Filth, and it wasn't really. Obviously, I was busy with Cradle, but there were times I get months off at a time, and I think we were all growing up at this point. Everyone was getting married, having kids. Yeah. The priorities changed, and then all of a sudden it's like, right, let's get it going, and then I'm off on tour again. Yeah. By the time something's building, or we've got some songs written, or we could go into the studio, the Cradle of Filth tour's been booked, so I'd have to disappear again. So we were just like snapping at these little nuggets in time when we could get together.
Yeah.
But like I say, life is a little bit different now to it was when I was 21. You know, obviously we've all got our own different responsibilities and priorities now, so it's trickier to get together, but it still does happen.
It does happen. Promote events, as you know, Richard, and I was absolutely chuffed to bits when there was a gap in your schedule. And NG26 performed at the Ozfest in Derbyshire last year. That was, I really, really enjoyed that. I know a lot of people did, and it was great to see the band there with their family as well.
I think that's the weird thing now. When we do go out and do gigs, it's like our kids come now. Even when you say that, we kind of feel. I get really, really happy thinking about that. It's like, I mean, we've been in the same band since I was like, was I 14, I think, when I joined the band? They were already a band before I joined for about a year. So I think I was like 13 or 14. And now it's still technically still going, but in a very different form. Still really good mates, but now our kids come to the gigs. So it's really bizarre to think back on it. But it's really nice, though. Really nice.
And when you're back home as well, you're also tutor, guitar tutor.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I was doing the guitar teaching thing long before I joined Cradle of Filth. I mean, I went to a music school and came out of there when I was 21.
Yep.
And I was like, right, I'm actually going to use this degree and everything I've used. I mean, I could go work anywhere else, like in a supermarket or whatever, but I want to use the skills I've learned. And I kind of became a teacher just by default, because I was like, well, at least it's earning a living playing the guitar, which was always the goal, to be honest with you. I just wanted to earn a living playing guitar. But then I found I just really, really enjoyed it once I got into it.
Yeah.
So I'm still the same now. Like, I come off tour and I just carry on teaching in exactly the same way I was before I joined Cradle of Filth. So I enjoy it. I don't see myself stopping teaching because I do enjoy it.
Brilliant. Okay, so that's about it for today, Richard. I hope, I look forward to the new Cradle of Filth album. I do hope that all the shows across Europe that were booked get rescheduled and you get back on it as
Thank you. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
I'd like to wish you all the best. Thanks for supporting the local music scene, and thanks for doing the interview today.
No problem, Paul. Anytime.
Thank you, mate. Richard Shaw, everybody. Thank you in the doghouse today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow. Well, the comments will come up very shortly, but I really enjoyed catching up with Richard. He's a great ambassador of East Midlands musicians. I think it's amazing what he does. He's obviously, and he'll tell you, he's very lucky. He's awesomely talented, so it's not lucky. You would have him in your band anytime. He's absolutely amazing. It was a great pleasure catching up with him and him sharing stories with me about playing all over the world and playing massive audiences. And then the time before last I saw him, I don't know if I mentioned it in the interview, but he was in the pantomime. He was in the orchestra pit of the pantomime. You know what I mean? He just did everything. He's absolutely fantastic. What a great guy. Absolute
Awesome.
pleasure.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah. Having Richard Shaw on the programme. If you want to play guitar, you want to learn to play guitar, at whatever level you're at, and you want lessons, get in touch with Richard. Or get in touch with Paul, who's on later as well. He does that as well. But,
Yeah, we've got plenty of comments coming in anyway that enjoying the interview. Jamie Alders, great interview. Jamie Wiggins, great interview. Sally Shakespeare, great chat. We also got a comment from Sally saying, loving the Doghouse show. Well done, guys. So some more people catching the show and tuning in and enjoying it, which is great for us. We enjoy nice comments about what we're doing because we put a lot into it, and I think hopefully it comes across and shows. So.